Dear listener, welcome once more to the Hercule Poirot Story Podcast, where the little gray cells awaken to unravel the most perplexing enigmas of the human soul. Tonight, we transport you to the City of Light, Paris, in the year 1932, a time when the world teetered between the exuberance of the Jazz Age and the encroaching shadows of uncertainty. Beneath the majestic Eiffel Tower, that iron sentinel piercing the starlit heavens, a tragedy unfolds. The air is crisp with the scent of autumn leaves and the faint perfume of the Seine. Yet a storm brews on the horizon, thunder rumbling like the discontented murmurs of fate itself. Chapter 1. The Shadowed Discovery. In the tender embrace of midnight, beneath the soaring lattice of the Eiffel Tower, Paris lay draped in a velvet shroud of secrecy. The year was 1932, an era when the City of Light flickered between the exuberance of its jazz-soaked nights and the somber undertones of a world teetering on the edge of uncertainty. The tower itself, that audacious monument of iron and ambition, stood sentinel over the slumbering city, its electric lights casting a constellation of artificial stars upon the Seine's glassy surface. The air was crisp with the scent of autumn, decaying leaves mingling with the faint perfume of chestnuts roasting in distant quarters. Yet a palpable malaise hung heavy, as though the very heavens sensed the tragedy about to unfold. It was here in this ethereal theater of modernity and antiquity that a crime most foul was discovered. A tableau of death painted with cruel precision. Madame Elise Dupont, the prima donna whose voice had bewitched the grand opera houses from La Scala to Covent Garden, lay lifeless upon the dew-kissed grass at the tower's base. Her form, once vibrant with the passion of 1,000 arias, was now a silent elegy. Her sapphire silk gown splayed like the wings of a fallen angel. Around her slender neck, his trade, now thrust into the maelstrom of aristocracy's shadowed underbelly. He knelt beside her, his breath catching in shallow bursts, torn between the instinct to flee and the duty to remain. The city's pulse quickened as the first gendarmes arrived, their boots resounding against the cobblestones with the urgency of a war drum. Inspector Jules Moreau, a sturdy man of 40, with a mustache that rivaled the elegance of any Parisian dandy, took command with a furrowed brow and a voice tempered by years of grim discoveries. His eyes, sharp beneath bushy brows, surveyed the scene with practiced detachment, yet even he could not suppress a flicker of unease. Strangulation, he muttered to his subordinate, a young sergeant scribbling furiously in a notebook. No blood, no weapon save the scarf itself. But the knot, it is too precise, too deliberate. His mind, trained in the rigors of detection, raced through the implications. Madame Dupont had been seen ascending the tower's iron staircases earlier that evening, her silhouette a solitary grace against the starlit sky. Alone, or so it appeared. But who had followed her into the shadows? Who had woven this silken noose? The ground beneath the tower, soft from an earlier drizzle, bore the faint imprints of a clandestine rendezvous. Delicate heels, unmistakably Elise's, mingled with broader soles. Men's boots, scuffed at the toes, suggesting a hasty retreat or a struggle suppressed. A torn fragment of fabric, crimson and silken, clung to a thorny bush nearby, its vibrant hue a stark contrast to the muted greens of the grass. Inspector Moreau crouched, his gloved hand retrieving the scrap with care, his mind alighting on the possibility of a lover's quarrel or a calculated betrayal. Evidence, he murmured, or misdirection. The physical clues were tantalizing, yet incomplete, like notes in a symphony cut short. As the first whispers of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the tower's iron lattice in hues of rose and gold, word of Mademoiselle Claire Beaumont, a rival soprano of 28, her beauty as sharp as her ambition, had long chafed under Elise's shadow, her star eclipsed by the older woman's brilliance. Dr. Émile Rousseau, the family physician and whispered paramour, a silver-templed man of 50 whose calm demeanor masked a heart torn by illicit passion. Madame Victoire Leclerc, the manageress of Elise's affairs, a plump and bespectacled woman of 40, whose ledgers hid secrets as dark as the Seine at midnight. And Baron Otto von Kessler, a German aristocrat of 35, whose obsessive devotion to Elise had bordered on mania, his letters of adoration spurned with cruel indifference. Then there was Pierre Laurent himself, the lamplighter, an unlikely figure in this drama of high society, yet his discovery raised questions. His guileless eyes and calloused hands suggested innocence, but the omniscient eye of fate noted the tremor in his voice, the hesitation in his tale. Was he merely a witness, or did his presence at the scene conceal a deeper role? The psychological undercurrents were as murky as the river's depths, each suspect a study in human frailty. Ambition, love, greed, all twisted into knots as intricate as the fatal scarf. Inspector Moreau, pacing the perimeter of the crime scene, noted additional details. A cigarette butt, discarded near the body, bore traces of lipstick. Not Elise's pale rose, but a deeper crimson. Perhaps a clue, or another red herring. A crumpled letter, tucked within the folds of her gown, bore the words, "End this folly, or all shall know." The handwriting was elegant, yet hurried, suggesting a confrontation cut short by violence. The timeline, too, was fraught with inconsistencies. Witnesses at a nearby cafe recalled seeing Elise ascend the tower at 10:30 p.m., her sapphire gown catching the light like a beacon. Yet the medical examiner, arriving with the dawn, estimated her time of death at approximately 11:15 p.m. Who had joined her in that fateful interval? The footprints' friend in the Sûreté. His green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, surveyed the tableau with a mixture of curiosity and disdain for disorder. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, twirling his mustache. "What a tragedy to mar such a night. But fear not, mes amis, for Hercule Poirot shall bring order to this chaos." The omniscient eye of fate, hovering above, knew that the truth lay buried beneath layers of deception, waiting for the little Belgian to unearth it. The game was afoot, and the stars above the tower bore witness to the dance of motives that would soon unfold. Chapter 2. The Arrival of the Little Belgian. As the first rays of dawn gilded the Seine with a sheen of molten gold, the Eiffel Tower stood resolute, its iron lattice a silent chronicler of the tragedy that had unfolded beneath its starlit gaze. Paris, in the year 1932, stirred from its slumber with a murmur of scandal, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked cobblestones and the bitter tang of whispered secrets. The murder of Madame Elise Dupont, the prima donna whose voice had once soared like a lark over the opera houses of Europe, had cast a pall over the city of light. Her body, discovered at the tower's base, lay covered now with a pristine sheet. Yet the image of her sapphire gown and the silken scarf, knotted with cruel precision, lingered in the minds of those who had beheld it. Into this scene of ordered chaos stepped Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective whose reputation for unraveling the most labyrinthine mysteries preceded him like a herald. Alighting from a taxicab with the grace of a man who valued symmetry in all things, he adjusted his immaculate bowler hat and twirled his meticulously groomed mustache, its waxed tips gleaming in the morning light. His coat, tailored from the finest wool, clung to his compact frame, and his patent leather shoes clicked with purposeful rhythm upon the gravel path. His eyes, green and piercing as cut emeralds, surveyed the cordoned scene with a blend of curiosity and disdain for the disorder that murder invariably wrought. Mona, a calculated act, I wager. Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved hand lifting the sheet with reverence. The scarf, embroidered with golden larks, was indeed a work of art, its fatal knot betraying a hand both steady and cruel. Not the work of despair, Inspector, Poirot murmured, his accent a soft cadence against the morning's chill. This is the signature of one who knows the anatomy of death. The scene was a canvas of clues, each stroke painted with deliberate ambiguity. The grass, still damp from the night's drizzle, bore the imprints of delicate heels, Elise's, no doubt, intersected by broader soles, scuffed at the toes, suggesting a hurried departure. A crimson silk fragment, torn and clinging to a thorny bush, caught Poirot's eye. He retrieved it with his silver-tipped cane, holding it to the light. A clue, perhaps, he mused, or a misdirection sown to confound us. Nearby, a cigarette butt, its tip stained with crimson lipstick, lay discarded, a shade deeper than Elise's preferred rose, hinting at another's presence. Poirot's mind catalogued these details with the precision of a watchmaker, each fragment a cog in the machinery of truth. Inspector Moreau briefed Poirot on the preliminary findings. Madame Dupont had ascended the tower at 10:30 p.m., according to witnesses at a nearby café, her sapphire gown a beacon in the electric glow. Her time of death, estimated at 11:15 p.m., left a window of opportunity shrouded in mystery. A crumpled letter, found in her purse, bore the words, "End this folly, or all shall know." The handwriting, elegant yet hurried, suggested a confrontation cut short by violence. A lover's threat? Moreau posited. Poirot's lips curled into a faint smile. Or a red herring, mon ami. The heart, it is a labyrinth, and we have yet to map its passages. The suspects emerged from the shadows of inquiry, their silhouettes cast by the omniscient eye of fate. First, Monsieur Henri Dupont, the victim's husband, a gaunt industrialist of 45 whose face was etched with lines of perpetual silvered temples and a demeanor of calculated calm. His motive lay in the fear of exposure, for Elise had threatened to end their illicit affair. His psychological depth was a study in duality, devotion warring with self-preservation. His alibi, a house call at 11 p.m., was unsupported by records, a crack in his polished facade. Madame Victoire Leclerc, the manageress of Elise's affairs, was a plump woman of 40. her bespectacled eyes darting with the cunning of a fox. Her ledgers, rumored to conceal embezzled fortunes, suggested a motive of greed, her envy of Elise's wealth a festering wound. Her psychological profile revealed a mind adept at deception, yet her plump fingers twisted nervously when questioned. Baron Otto von Kessler, a German aristocrat of 35, cut an athletic figure, his blonde hair and piercing blue eyes masking a psyche fractured by obsession. His unrequited love for Elise, expressed in fervent letters, had been spurned, breeding a vengeful mania. A silk scarf in his possession, similar to the murder weapon, raised alarms, yet his overt passion seemed too convenient a motive. Young Pierre Laurent, the lamplighter who discovered the body, lingered on the periphery. His guileless gaze and calloused hands bespoke humility, yet Poirot sensed layers beneath his simplicity. His psychological profile hinted at a hidden connection. A bastard son, perhaps, seeking retribution for abandonment. His presence at the scene, though seemingly innocent, was a thread Poirot could not yet unravel. As Poirot paced the scene, his cane tapping a rhythm of contemplation, the tower loomed above, its iron lattice a web of secrets. The morning air, now warming with the sun's ascent, carried the distant laughter of cafe patrons, a stark contrast to the gravity of the moment. Poirot's mind, a symphony of order and method, began to weave the disparate clues into a pattern. The footprints suggested a rendezvous, the lipstick a possible accomplice, the letter a motive of betrayal. 3. Whispers in the salon. The morning sun, having breached the horizon, bathed the Champs-Élysées in a golden radiance. Yet within the grand salon of the Dupont residence, an air of disquiet prevailed. The room, a monument to opulence, was adorned with crystal chandeliers that refracted light into prismatic shards, velvet drapes of deepest burgundy, and a marble fireplace where embers glowed like the embers of secrets yet to be unearthed. The scent of lilies, arranged in towering vases, hung heavy in the air, their funereal fragrance a silent elegy for Madame Elise Dupont, whose murder beneath the Eiffel Tower had set Paris ablaze with speculation. It was the year 1932, a time when the city's elegance masked a current of unease, and within this gilded cage, Hercule Poirot prepared to unravel the tangled threads of motive and deception. The little Belgian detective, his impeccable attire a testament to his reverence for order, stood at the room's center, his green eyes scanning the assembled suspects with the precision of a jeweler appraising flawed gems. His mustache, a masterpiece of symmetry, twitched faintly as he addressed Inspector Jules Moreau, whose robust frame and bristling mustache loomed beside him. "Mon ami," Poirot intoned, his voice a silken thread weaving through the room's tension. "The salon. It is a stage, no? And here, the players gather, each with a role to play in this tragedy. The omniscient eye of fate, hovering unseen, observed the undercurrents of fear, guilt, and defiance that rippled through the gathering, each suspect a study in the frailties of the human soul. The suspects, summoned under the pretext of inquiry, sat in a semicircle of ornate chairs, their postures betraying the weight of scrutiny. Monsieur Henri Dupont, the victim's husband, cut a gaunt figure, his black suit accentuating the pallor of his face, where lines of discontent were etched like fissures in stone. His eyes, dark and shadowed, flickered with a restless energy, suggesting a man whose jealousy had long festered under Elise's radiant fame. Apart, his calloused hands folded nervously, his guileless gaze clouded by the weight of his discovery. Poirot began, his voice commanding the silence. Mesdames et messieurs, the death of Madame Dupont is no mere tragedy, but a crime of deliberation. The scarf, the knot, the footprints, they speak of a mind that plans, that deceives. I, Hercule Poirot, shall uncover the truth, but first, I must hear your voices. The room seemed to contract, the air growing thick with anticipation as rain began to patter against the tall windows, a mournful counterpoint to the crackling fire. He turned first to Henri Dupont, whose gaunt frame stiffened under scrutiny. Monsieur Dupont, your wife was a star whose light illuminated the world, yet left you in shadow, non? Was this a burden to your heart? Henri's lips tightened, his voice a low growl. Elise was a butterfly, flitting from one admirer to another, leaving me to gather the dust of her fame. Estranged, perhaps, but murder? Absurd. I was at my club, playing cards until dawn, as my fellows will attest. His alibi was firm, yet Poirot noted the tremor in his hand, a faint clenching of the fist, a psychological signal of suppressed fury. The omniscient narrator observed a flicker of memory in Henri's eyes, a whispered argument perhaps, or a betrayal too painful to voice. Mademoiselle Claire Beaumont sipped her tea with feigned composure, her porcelain cup clinking softly against its saucer. Mademoiselle, Poirot said, his eyes piercing her facade. You and Madame Dupont were rivals, no? Her voice eclipsed yours, a star outshining a candle. Claire's laughter was sharp, a blade cloaked in velvet. Eclipsed? Hardly. Elise was a fading relic, clinging to roles that should have been mine. My star rises, Monsieur Poirot, and hers has fallen. Her words dripped with venom, yet her eyes darted to the window, betraying unease. Poirot's gaze lingered on her sleeve, where a crimson thread, matching the torn fabric found at the scene, clung like an accusation. A red herring? Perhaps not all of it honest, no? Poirot's question was a gentle probe, yet it struck a nerve. I managed her affairs with diligence, she replied, her voice tight. Elise trusted me implicitly. Yet her eyes, magnified by her spectacles, betrayed a flicker of fear. Greed, perhaps, or the dread of exposure. Her psychological profile revealed a mind adept at manipulation, yet vulnerable to the weight of her own secrets. Baron von Kessler, his blonde hair gleaming, leaned forward with a defiant smirk. Monsieur Poirot, I adored Elise, as one worships a goddess. Her rejection wounded me, yes, but I am no murderer. His voice boomed with Teutonic pride, yet his fingers drummed restlessly, a sign of inner turmoil. Poirot noted a silk scarf folded neatly in his pocket, its pattern eerily similar to the murder weapon. A deliberate clue or a misdirection? Pierre Laurent, the lamplighter, shrank under Poirot's scrutiny. Monsieur Laurent, you found her, no? A humble man, yet thrust into this drama. What did you see? Pierre's voice trembled. Only her body, monsieur, lying there like a broken doll. I swear, I only meant to help. His guileless eyes held a spark of fear, perhaps of being ensnared in a web not of his making. The omniscient narrator sensed a deeper connection, perhaps a secret tied to his past, a motive yet to surface. As the rain intensified, drumming a somber rhythm against the panes, Poirot uncovered a timeline inconsistency that deepened the mystery. Witnesses at the cafe had seen Elise arguing with a shadowy figure atop the tower at 11 p.m. Yet all suspects claimed alibis for that hour. Henri at his club, Claire at rehearsal, Rousseau on a house call, Leclerc at a dinner, Otto at his hotel, and Pierre lighting lamps. The discrepancy gnawed at Poirot's mind, a puzzle piece that refused to fit. The salon with its glittering chandeliers and mournful lilies became a croup tower. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faint tang of the Seine, its waters murmuring secrets to the cobblestones that lined its banks. The tower, that colossus of human ambition, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy of Madame Elise Dupont, whose lifeless form had been discovered at its base, her sapphire gown and silken scarf a testament to a life extinguished with cruel precision. The city, still reeling from the scandal of the prima donna's murder, buzzed with whispers, yet the truth remained shrouded, waiting for the piercing intellect of Hercule Poirot to part the fog of deception. The little Belgian detective returned to the scene at first light, his patent leather shoes sinking slightly into the dew-soaked grass, his cane tapping a rhythm of contemplation against the gravel path. Clad in a coat of finest wool, his mustache impeccably waxed, Poirot's green eyes gleamed with the focus of a hawk surveying its domain. The mist, curling like ghostly tendrils around the tower's iron girders, seemed to bow to his presence, as though acknowledging the arrival of order amidst chaos. "Mon ami," he murmured to Inspector Jules Moreau, who trailed him with a notebook clutched tightly. The earth, she remembers what the heart seeks to conceal. We must listen to her whispers. The omniscient eye of fate, hovering above, observed the delicate dance of clues and misdirection, each fragment a thread in the tapestry of truth. The crime scene, cordoned by the Sûreté, was a tableau frozen in time. The grass, preserved by the night's drizzle, bore the faint imprints of a fatal rendezvous. Delicate heels, unmistakably Elise's, intersected by broader soles, men's boots, scuffed at the toes, suggesting a hasty retreat or a struggle suppressed. Poirot knelt, his magnifying glass catching the pale light as he examined the footprints, with the precision of a cartographer mapping uncharted lands. "Observe, Inspector," he said, his voice a silken thread cutting through the mist. "The heels, they are deep, as if breadcrumbs leading to a labyrinth rather than a truth." Poirot's cane traced a path to a thorny bush, where another clue emerged. A single pearl, small but lustrous, caught in the brambles. "A jewel from a necklace, perhaps," he said, "or an earring torn in struggle." The pearl, with its faint iridescence, suggested wealth and refinement, yet its presence at the scene was a puzzle. Did it belong to Elise, or had it fallen from another's adornment? The letter found in Elise's purse, crumpled and tear-stained, bore the words, "End this folly or all shall know." Poirot examined it anew, noting the elegant script, hurried yet precise, suggesting a writer of education and urgency. "A threat," he said, "but from whom? A lover scorned, a rival betrayed, or a conspirator seeking silence?" The detective's inquiries extended to a nearby café, Le Chat Noir, where the night's patrons had glimpsed Elise ascending the tower at 10:30 p.m. The proprietor, a wiry man with a waxed mustache, recalled a shadowy figure trailing her. A man in a fedora, his face obscured by the brim. "He lingered, monsieur," the proprietor said, his voice low, watching her like a wolf watches a lamb. The description matched Dr. Emile Rousseau's silhouette, yet Poirot's little gray cells cautioned against haste. The doctor's alibi, a house call at 11 p.m., was unverified, but the fedora was a common accessory, a potential red herring sown to divert suspicion. The suspects, their profiles sharpened by Poirot's scrutiny, loomed larger in the mist. Monsieur Henri Dupont, the jealous husband, his gaunt frame and shadowed eyes a canvas of suppressed rage. His alibi at the gentlemen's club was corroborated, yet Poirot sensed a psychological fracture. A man whose pride had been wounded by Elise's affairs. Mademoiselle Claire Beaumont, the ambitious soprano, her sharp beauty and trembling hands betraying a soul consumed by envy. The crimson thread on her sleeve, noted in the salon, matched the torn fabric. Yet her rehearsal alibi held, barely. Dr. Rousseau, the lover, his silvered temples and calm face tied to a past Elise had buried. Poirot's mind, a symphony of order and method, parsed the clues with relentless precision. The footprints suggested a rendezvous. The lipstick, a possible accomplice. The pearl, a hint of wealth. The letter, a motive of betrayal. Yet each clue bore the potential for deception. A web of red herrings spun by a cunning hand. The timeline, too, was fraught with inconsistencies. Elise's ascent at 10:30 p.m. and her death at 11:15 p.m. left a window of opportunity. Yet the shadowy figure at 11 p.m. confounded the narrative. Had she met one person, or two? The scuffed boots suggested haste, but the uneven depth hinted at artifice, a killer disguising their stride. As the mist thickened, curling around the tower's iron lattice like a lover's embrace, Poirot ventured to the tower's lower platform where Elise had last been seen alive. The iron steps, slick with dew, bore no clear marks, yet a faint scratch on the railing caught his eye, a nick, as if a ring or bracelet had scraped in haste. A struggle, perhaps, he murmured, or a clumsy retreat. The omniscient narrator noted the psychological weight of the scene. The tower, a symbol of Paris aspirations, now a stage for its darkest impulses. At Le Chat Noir, further inquiries revealed a second witness, a flower girl, her basket of roses wilting in the dawn. She recalled a woman in a crimson cloak near the tower, her face obscured, lingering after Elise's ascent. "She seemed angry, monsieur," the girl whispered, muttering to herself. The description aligned with Madame Leclerc's wardrobe. Yet Claire Beaumont, too, favored bold hues. Another red herring, or a clue to complicity. Poirot stood at the tower's base, his cane planted firmly, his eyes tracing the lattice to the heavens. The mist, it conceals, but it also reveals, he said to Moreau. The footprints, the pearl, the letter. They are threads in a tapestry, but the pattern is not yet clear. Chapter 5. The Rival's Lament. The sun, now climbing toward its zenith, cast a pale golden glow over Paris in the autumn of 1932. Yet the city's radiance was dimmed by the shadow of Madame Elise Dupont's murder. The Eiffel Tower, its iron lattice piercing the heavens, stood as a mute sentinel over the Champ de Mars, where the prima donna's life had been extinguished with a silken scarf, its golden larks a cruel mockery of her silenced voice. The air, laden with the scent of roasting chestnuts and the faint musk of the Seine, carried whispers of scandal that rippled through the salons and cafes, each rumor a thread in the tapestry of deception that Hercule Poirot sought to unravel. The little Belgian detective, his patent leather shoes gleaming with the precision of his mind, navigated the bustling streets toward the modest yet elegant apartment of Mademoiselle Claire Beaumont, the rival soprano whose star had been eclipsed by Elise's brilliance. Situated overlooking the Tuileries Gardens, the apartment was a shrine to ambition, its walls adorned with posters of Claire's performances, their vibrant colors overshadowing a single, faded clipping of Elise's triumph at the Opera Garnier. The room was bathed in soft light filtering through lace curtains, the scent of lavender mingling with the faint bitterness of spilled ink, as though the occupant had wrestled with words as fiercely as with her own desires. Poirot, his mustache a masterpiece of symmetry, stood at the threshold, his green eyes piercing the veil of Claire's carefully curated facade. "Mademoiselle," he began, his voice a silken probe, "the stage of life is cruel, no? To live in the shadow of another is a burden heavy upon the soul." Claire Beaumont, at 28, was a vision of sharp beauty, her raven hair pinned in a chignon that accentuated the angular elegance of her features. Her eyes, a stormy gray, flickered with defiance, yet her hands, slender and restless, betrayed a tremor of unease as she gestured Poirot to a velvet-upholstered chair. The omniscient eye of fate, hovering unseen, observed the psychological tempest with not a victim to mourn. Her fingers twisted a silk handkerchief, its weave eerily similar to the murder weapon, a detail Poirot noted with a raised eyebrow. "I was at the Opera Garnier, rehearsing until 10:45, she continued, her eyes darting to a gilt-framed mirror. "Ask the stagehands, they saw me." Her alibi, corroborated by witnesses, seemed solid. Yet Poirot's little gray cells detected a flaw. A clock at the opera house, known to run 5 minutes slow, placed her departure closer to 10:50, leaving just enough time to reach the tower by 11. The omniscient narrator discerned a deeper layer to Claire's psyche. Beneath her bravado lay a fragile admiration for Elise, a rival she both despised and revered. Her ambition was a fire that burned brightly, yet it was fueled by a fear of fading into obscurity, a motive that could curdle into violence. Poirot, ever attuned to such nuances, leaned forward, his cane resting lightly against the arm of his chair. "Mademoiselle, you speak of theft, but perhaps it was not only roles that Elise took. A lover, perhaps, or a secret you shared." Claire's face paled, her lips parting as if to protest, then closing tightly. "You overstep, monsieur," she said, her voice a whisper of steel. "I had no secrets with her." Yet her eyes, darting to a locked drawer in her writing desk, betrayed a hidden truth. A letter, perhaps, or a memento of betrayal. Poirot's examination of the apartment revealed further clues. A pair of elegant heels, their soles caked with dried mud, sat inconspicuously by the door, their size matching the delicate footprints at the crime scene. "You walked in the rain, mademoiselle," Poirot observed. "Perhaps near the tower?" Claire's composure faltered, her fingers tightening on the handkerchief. "I stroll the gardens often," she said quickly. "The mud is from the Tuileries, not the Champ de Mars." Her explanation was plausible, yet the omniscient eye noted a flicker of panic, a psychological crack in her polished exterior. "Hue, monsieur. Many in Paris wear it." Yet the omniscient narrator observed a subtle shift in her posture, a defensive curl of her shoulders, suggesting the thread was no mere coincidence. The timeline, ever a puzzle, grew more complex. Witnesses at Le Chat Noir had reported a woman in a crimson cloak near the tower after Elise's ascent at 10:30 p.m., muttering angrily. Claire's wardrobe included such a cloak, yet she denied venturing near the tower. I was home by 11, she insisted, reading scripts for my next role. Her maid, questioned discreetly by Inspector Moreau, confirmed her return, but the maid's hesitations suggested coercion or bribery. A red herring, perhaps, or a clue to Claire's movements. Poirot's mind, a symphony of order and method, parsed the clues with relentless precision. The muddy heels, the crimson thread, the lipstick-stained cigarette, the photograph, all pointed to Claire, yet their overtness suggested a trap. Was she the killer, or a scapegoat framed by a cunning hand? The letter in Elise's purse, "End this folly, or all shall know," hinted at a shared secret. But Claire's locked drawer remained unopened, its contents a mystery. The timeline discrepancy, with the opera clock's lag, placed Claire tantalizingly close to the crime. Yet her alibi held, if only by a thread. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the lace curtains, Poirot rose, his cane tapping a final note of inquiry. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, your star burns bright, but even the brightest stars cast shadows. I shall see you again, no?" Claire's smile was a mask, her eyes betraying a flicker of fear. "I have nothing to hide, Monsieur Poirot," she said, but her voice trembled, a psychological echo of a soul on the precipice. The omniscient eye of fate, watching from above, knew that Claire's heart was a battleground of ambition. Wet leaves and the distant aroma of baking bread carried whispers of motives, jealousy, greed, revenge, that swirled like the mist over the Seine. Into this vortex of intrigue stepped Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian whose little gray cells were attuned to the subtlest dissonances of the human heart. Poirot's destination was the modest clinic of Dr. Émile Rousseau, tucked away in a quiet corner of the Latin Quarter, where the cobblestones gleamed with the sheen of recent rain. The clinic's facade, unassuming yet dignified, bore the marks of a man who valued discretion above ostentation. Within, the air was thick with the antiseptic tang of carbolic acid, mingling with the faint musk of old leather from a cluttered bookshelf. The room was a study in contrasts. Sterile instruments gleamed on a metal tray, while a single rose in a vase, wilted yet poignant, hinted at a heart swayed by sentiment. Poirot, his patent leather shoes silent on the polished floor, adjusted his bowler hat and twirled his mustache, his green eyes piercing the dim light as he faced the doctor. "Doctor," he began, his voice a silken thread cutting through the room's stillness. "The heart, it is a fragile organ, no? It loves, it betrays, and sometimes it kills." Dr. Rousseau, at 50, was a man of distinguished bearing, his silvered temples and silver-rimmed spectacles lending an air of gravitas to a face etched with the strain of hidden burdens. His hands, steady in surgery, trembled faintly as he adjusted a stack of medical journals, a psychological clue to a soul wrestling with secrets. The omniscient eye of fate, hovering unseen, observed the tempest within him, a man torn between devotion and self-preservation. his love for Elise a flame that had burned too brightly, threatening to consume him. "Monsieur Poirot," Rousseau said, his voice measured but tinged with unease. "I am a physician, not a murderer. Elise was my patient, nothing more." Yet his eyes, darting to a locked cabinet, betrayed a deeper truth. One Poirot's little gray cells bag, its leather worn but meticulously organized, containing a vial of sedative, the same prescribed to Elise for her nerves. "You medicated her, doctor," Poirot said. "But perhaps you knew her heart too well. Did she confide in you a secret, one that another wished to silence?" Rousseau's lips tightened, his hands clenching the bag's handle. "She was distraught, yes, but I kept her confidence. A physician does not betray his patient." Yet his trembling hands, a psychological echo of fear, suggested a man haunted by more than professional duty. Poirot's examination revealed further clues. A cigarette case tucked among the journals bore traces of crimson lipstick, the same shade as the butt found at the crime scene, but not Elise's rose. "You smoke, doctor?" Poirot asked, his eyebrow raised. Rousseau hesitated, then admitted, "My wife's brand. She visited the clinic that evening. The admission was a red herring, perhaps, for the lipstick matched Claire Beaumont's, sowing seeds of confusion. The omniscient eye noted a deeper layer. Rousseau's wife, a shadowy figure in the narrative, harbored her own motives, her jealousy a potential spark in the tinderbox of this crime. A locked cabinet, its key dangling from Rousseau's watch chain, drew Poirot's attention. "What do you conceal, doctor?" he asked, his voice a probe into the man's soul. Rousseau's face flushed, his fingers fumbling with the key. "Patient records, nothing more." Yet the omniscient narrator sensed a hidden truth. A letter, perhaps, or a token of Elise's affection, locked away to protect a fragile reputation. Poirot, ever tactful, did not press, but his little gray cells catalogued the cabinet as a puzzle to revisit. The timeline, ever a labyrinth, grew more intricate. Witnesses at Le Chat Noir had reported a man in a fedora near the tower at 11 p.m., a silhouette matching Rousseau's. "You were seen, doctor," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. "A man of your description, watching Elise ascend the tower." Rousseau's composure cracked, his voice rising. "I was in Montmartre, I swear. The fedora, it is desperation." Her threat to end their affair, coupled with rumors of another lover, perhaps Baron von Kessler, had wounded him deeply. Yet his demeanor suggested fear of exposure, not the cold calculation of murder. Was he a victim of circumstance, or a conspirator masking his guilt? The letter in Elise's purse, "End this folly, or all shall know," pointed to a shared secret. But Rousseau's locked cabinet remained a mystery, its contents a potential key to the truth. As the afternoon light faded, casting long shadows across the clinic's floor, Poirot rose, his cane tapping a rhythm of contemplation. "Docteur, the heart is a labyrinth, and yours it holds many chambers. I shall return, no?" Rousseau's nod was curt, his eyes haunted by the specter of scrutiny. The omniscient narrator noted a flicker of relief, as though the doctor believed his secrets safe. For now, Poirot stepped into the Latin Quarter, where the rain had ceased, leaving the cobblestones glistening like a mirror of the city's soul. The other suspects, Henri Dupont's jealousy, Claire Beaumont's ambition, Madame Leclerc's greed, Baron von Kessler's obsession, and Pierre Laurent's enigmatic presence, formed a constellation of motives, each star a clue in the firmament of deception. The antiseptic smudge, the lipstick-stained cigarette, the locked cabinet, and the timeline's gaps were threads in a tapestry, their pattern obscured by the mist of human frailty. The omniscient eye of fate, watching from above, knew that the truth lay buried beneath layers of artifice, waiting for Poirot's relentless logic to unearth it. The city of Paris, its streets alive with the hum of life, watched as the little Belgian, with his impeccable mustache and unyielding intellect, prepared to pierce the veil of secrets that cloaked the murder beneath the starlit tower. Chapter 7. The Baron's Obsession. As twilight descended upon Paris in the autumn of 1932, the city shimmered with a restless allure, its boulevards aglow with the electric pulse of modernity. The Eiffel Tower, its iron lattice of halls, adorned with gilded mirrors and chandeliers that sparkled like captured stars, exuded an air of aristocratic excess. Yet beneath the opulence lay a current of unease, as though the walls themselves whispered of secrets. Poirot, his mustache a masterpiece of symmetry, adjusted his bowler hat as he entered the Baron's suite, his green eyes piercing the dimly lit room like a searchlight through fog. "Monsieur le Baron," he began, his voice a silken probe slicing through the heavy air. "The heart, when it loves too fiercely, becomes a fire that consumes all reason. Tell me, did your passion for Madame Dupont burn so brightly?" Baron Otto von Kessler, at 35, was a figure of commanding presence, his athletic build clad in a tailored suit of midnight blue, his blonde hair swept back to reveal piercing blue eyes that gleamed with a fanatic's zeal. The suite, with its mahogany furniture and tapestries depicting Prussian victories, was a shrine to his heritage. Yet a single photograph of Elise Dupont, framed in silver on a side table, stood as a testament to his obsession. The omniscient eye of fate, hovering unseen, observed the tempest within him, a soul fractured by unrequited love, his devotion to Elise a flame that had turned to ash with her rejection. "Monsieur Poirot," Otto boomed, his voice resonant with Teutonic pride. "I adored her as one worships a goddess. Her voice, her grace, it was divine. But her death? I am no murderer." Yet his fingers drumming restlessly on the arm of his chair betrayed a psychological tremor. A man whose passion teetered on the edge of mania. Poirot's gaze lingered on a silk scarf, folded neatly in Otto's breast pocket, its pattern of soaring larks eerily similar to the murder weapon. "You kept a token of her, Baron," he said, his tone gentle, yet unyielding, but proprietary, as though he sought to possess Elise's very essence. Poirot's inquiries turned to the physical evidence. The footprints at the crime scene, delicate heels and scuffed boots, had included a pair that matched Otto's size, their deep imprints suggesting a man of his athletic build. "You were at the tower, Baron," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. "Your boots, they leave a distinctive mark, non?" Otto's composure faltered, his fingers clenching the chair's arm. "I walked the Champ de Mars that evening, yes, but not at the hour of her death. I was in my suite by 11, dining alone." His alibi, like those of the other suspects, was plausible yet fragile. for the hotel staff recalled his return but could not pinpoint the time. The omniscient narrator noted a discrepancy. A waiter had seen Otto pacing the hotel's lobby near 10:45, his coat damp from the rain, placing him perilously close to the tower's vicinity. A new clue emerged. A cigarette case, engraved with Otto's initials, lay on a side table, its surface smudged with the same crimson lipstick found at the scene. "You share a taste with another, Baron," Poirot observed. "Or perhaps this was left to implicate you." Otto's denial was swift. "My case, yes, but I do not smoke that brand. Someone must have used it." The lipstick, matching Claire Beaumont's shade, suggested a connection, or a deliberate plant to muddy the waters. The omniscient eye observed a pattern of misdirection, the clues scattered like leaves in a storm. The timeline, ever a labyrinth, grew more tangled. Witnesses at Le Chat Noir had reported a man in a fedora near the tower at 11 p.m., a silhouette that could match Otto's athletic frame. "You quarreled with Monsieur Dupont, no?" Poirot asked, recalling rumors of a business dispute. "Did your obsession extend to rivalry with her husband?" Otto's eyes darkened. "Henri Dupont is a fool, clinging to her wealth while she loved others. We argued, yes, over investments, not her heart." The admission hinted at a secondary motive, financial entanglement. Twilight deepened, casting the suite in shadows. Poirot rose, his cane tapping a rhythm of contemplation. "Baron, your passion is a flame that blinds, but Hercule Poirot sees through the smoke. We shall meet again, no?" Otto's nod was curt, his eyes burning with defiance and fear. The omniscient narrator noted a flicker of desperation, as though the Baron sensed the noose of truth tightening. Poirot stepped into the Parisian night, where the city lights twinkled like stars fallen to earth. The other suspects, Henri Dupont's jealousy, Claire Beaumont's ambition, Dr. Rousseau's fear, Madame Leclerc's greed, and Pierre Laurent's enigmatic presence, formed a constellation of motives, each a thread in the web of deception. The scarf, the letters, the cigarette case, and the ticket stub were clues in a tapestry, their pattern obscured by the fog of human frailty. The omniscient eye of fate, watching from above, knew that the truth lay buried beneath layers of artifice, waiting for Poirot's relentless logic to unearth it. The city of Paris, alive with the hum of scandal, watched as the little Belgian, with his impeccable mustache and unyielding intellect, prepared to pierce the veil of obsession that cloaked the murder beneath the starlit tower. Chapter 8. Threads Unraveling. As evening draped Paris in a cloak of twilight in the autumn of 1932, the city's pulse quickened with the fervor of scandal. The Eiffel Tower, its iron lattice aglow with electric lights, stood as a silent sentinel over the Champ de Mars, where Madame Elise Dupont, the prima donna whose voice had once enchanted the world, had been silenced by a silken scarf embroidered with golden larks. The air, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked cobblestones and the distant aroma of café au lait, carried whispers of motives, jealousy, ambition, fear, greed, obsession, that swirled like leaves in the autumn breeze. Within the intimate confines of his hotel room at the Hotel Lutetia, Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective, sat poised at a mahogany desk. Physical evidence, meticulously catalogued, lay before him. The crimson silk fragment, torn from a gown or cloak, found clinging to a bush at the crime scene. The cigarette butt, stained with crimson lipstick, not Elise's own. The pearl, caught in the brambles. The crumpled letter in Elise's purse, bearing the words, "End this folly, or all shall know." The faint smudge of antiseptic, and the scuffed boot prints intersecting Elise's delicate heels. Each clue was a puzzle piece, yet their edges refused to align, suggesting a web of red herrings spun by a cunning hand. Poirot's cane resting against the desk seemed to pulse with the rhythm of his thoughts, as though urging the truth to emerge from the shadows. A sudden rap at the door shattered the stillness, and Inspector Jules Moreau entered, his robust frame and bristling mustache a stark contrast to Poirot's compact elegance. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice urgent, "a development most grave. Pierre Laurent, the lamplighter, has vanished. His lodgings are empty, his lantern left behind." The news struck like a thunderclap, for Pierre, the guileless youth who had discovered Elise's body, had lingered on the periphery of suspicion. His disappearance, the omniscient narrator noted, was a psychological clue, a man fleeing scrutiny, or perhaps a pawn removed from the board by another's hand. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing, "this is no mere flight of fear. Pierre, he knows something, or someone fears what he might reveal." Poirot's mind returned to the suspects, their profiles sharpened by his earlier interrogations. Monsieur Henri Dupont, the jealous husband, his gaunt frame and shadowed eyes a canvas of suppressed rage, his alibi at the gentlemen's club firm, but tinged with the tremor of a man hiding deeper wounds. Mademoiselle Claire Beaumont, the ambitious soprano, her sharp beauty and trembling hands betraying a soul consumed by envy. The crimson thread on her sleeve a damning link to the crime scene. Ambiguity. The shadowy figure in a fedora, seen at 11 p.m., matched Rousseau's silhouette, yet Otto's athletic frame and Henri's gaunt stature could also fit. Claire's rehearsal ended at 10:50, thanks to the opera house's lagging clock, placing her within reach of the tower. Leclerc claimed a dinner with associates, yet her witnesses were vague, their loyalty suspect. Pierre, lighting lamps until 10:45, had stumbled upon the body shortly after, but his disappearance suggested he had seen more than he admitted. A new clue emerged, a telegram, delivered to Poirot's hotel that evening from a contact in the Sûreté. It revealed that Pierre Laurent was no mere lamplighter but the illegitimate son of a Parisian aristocrat, abandoned in youth, a secret that Elise, with her connections to high society, might have uncovered. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, a motive of revenge perhaps, or a fear of exposure. The omniscient eye noted a psychological shift. Pierre's guileless demeanor masked a wound that could fester into violence, yet his flight suggested fear rather than guilt. Poirot's examination of the physical evidence deepened. The crimson silk fragment, he deduced, matched a gown in Madame Leclerc's wardrobe, its vibrant hue a rarity among the suspects. Yet Claire's crimson cloak, seen by the flower girl, complicated the trail. The lipstick-stained cigarette, linked to Claire and Rousseau's wife, suggested a conspiracy, or a deliberate plant to implicate multiple parties. The pearl, small but lustrous, hinted at wealth, yet none of the suspects admitted to losing such a jewel. The antiseptic smudge, tied to Rousseau's clinic, could have been carried on a breeze, or left by a gloved hand. The boot prints, scuffed and uneven, suggested a disguised gait, a clue that pointed to no single suspect, but to the cunning of the killer. The letter, "End this folly, or all shall know," was a cipher of motives. Was it a lover's threat, as Rousseau feared? A rival's warning, as Claire's locked drawer suggested? Or a financial ultimatum, tied to Leclerc's embezzlement or Otto's investments with Henri? Poirot's directions. A symphony of misdirection, orchestrated by a mind as meticulous as Poirot's own. The city of Paris, its lights twinkling through the rain, watched as Poirot prepared for the next act. The suspects, scattered across the city, carried their secrets like burdens, unaware that the little Belgian's logic was closing in. The omniscient eye of fate knew that the truth lay buried beneath layers of artifice, waiting for Poirot's relentless intellect to unravel it. As the rain intensified, drumming a somber rhythm against the panes, Poirot smiled faintly, his mustache twitching with anticipation. "The threads, they unravel," he whispered, "and soon the tapestry will be complete." Chapter 9. The Gathering Storm. As night descended upon Paris in the autumn of 1932, a tempest brewed, its thunder rolling across the heavens like the drumbeat of fate. The Eiffel Tower, its iron lattice aglow with electric brilliance, loomed over the Champ de Mars, a silent witness to the tragedy of Madame Elise Dupont, whose voice, once a beacon of enchantment, had been stilled by a silken scarf, its golden larks a cruel emblem of her demise. The air, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and the faint perfume of the Seine, crackled with the tension of a city gripped by scandal. The murder beneath the starlit tower had woven a web of motives: jealousy, ambition, fear, greed, obsession, that swirled like the storm clouds above, waiting for the piercing intellect of Hercule Poirot to part their veil. In the grand hall beneath the tower, a cavernous space of iron and glass, Poirot assembled the suspects for a confrontation that promised to unravel the threads of deception. The hall, illuminated by flickering gaslights, was a cathedral of modernity, its arched ceiling echoing with the distant rumble of thunder. The scent of polished steel and damp wool mingled with the nervous perspiration of the gathered, each suspect a player on this stage of truth and treachery. Poirot, his patent leather shoes gleaming, clutching a crimson scarf. Dr. Émile Rousseau, the clandestine lover, adjusted his silver-rimmed spectacles, his silvered temples and calm facade cracking under the weight of scrutiny. Madame Victoire Leclerc, the manageress, her plump figure swathed in gray, dabbed sweat from her brow, her bespectacled eyes darting with the cunning of a fox cornered. Baron Otto von Kessler, the obsessive aristocrat, lounged with a defiant smirk, his athletic build and piercing blue eyes burning with unyielded passion. And Pierre Laurent, the lamplighter, apprehended by the Sûreté after his flight, sat trembling, his calloused hands and guileless gaze clouded by fear. Poirot's presence commanded the hall, his cane tapping a rhythm of anticipation. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, "the clues, they are many. The scarf, the crimson thread, the lipstick-stained cigarette, the pearl, the antiseptic smudge, the scuffed boots, the letter, the ticket stub. Yet each is a thread in a web of deception, woven to conceal the truth. Tonight, we shall cut through this web." Thunder punctuated his words, a dramatic echo of the storm within the room. The omniscient narrator noted the suspect's reactions. Henri's scowl deepened, Claire's lips tightened, Rousseau's hands trembled. Leclerc's sweat glistened. Otto's smirk faltered, and Pierre's eyes widened in terror. Poirot turned first to Henri Dupont, his gaze piercing. "Monsieur, your jealousy was a fire that consumed your marriage. Did it drive you to the tower to silence her?" Henri's voice was a growl. "I was at my club, Poirot, as you know. Elise's affairs were her own folly, not mine." Yet his alibi, though corroborated, was shaken by a new revelation. A waiter at the club recalled Henri stepping out briefly at 10:50 p.m., claiming a need for air. A walk, perhaps, to the tower? Poirot mused, noting Henri's clenched jaw, a psychological signal of guilt or fear. Claire Beaumont, his pallor deepened, a psychological echo of fear. Madame Leclerc, her plump hands twisting a handkerchief, flinched as Poirot turned to her. "Madame, your ledgers hide embezzled fortunes. Did Elise's discovery drive you to murder?" Leclerc's voice was shrill. "I managed her wealth with care. She trusted me." Yet a ledger entry, uncovered by the Sûreté, showed a discrepancy of thousands of francs, a motive for desperation. Her sweat-soaked brow was a psychological clue to a mind unraveling under scrutiny. Baron von Kessler, his blue eyes burning, leaned forward. "Baron, your obsession was a fire that Elise spurned. Did it turn to vengeance?" Otto's voice boomed. "I loved her, Poirot, not killed her. My letters were my heart's cry." Yet the silk scarf in his pocket and the train ticket stub suggested a plan thwarted by her death. A new revelation. Otto had been seen arguing with Henri over investments, a financial motive cloaked in passion. Pierre Laurent, trembling under Poirot's gaze, was the final piece. "Monsieur Laurent, you fled. Why? A secret perhaps tied to your past?" Pierre's voice broke. "I saw her body, monsieur. Nothing more. I ran from fear." Yet the telegram revealing his illegitimacy, a son of an aristocrat Elise knew, suggested a motive of revenge. His guileless eyes hid a wound, the omniscient narrator noted, that could fester into violence. Accusations flew like lightning. Claire pointed at Otto, her voice venomous. "He stalked her, Poirot. His letters were threats." Otto retorted, "You envied her, mademoiselle, and your cloak was seen." Henri accused Rousseau. "Your affair shamed her," while Leclerc whispered of Pierre's flight. The hall became a crucible of suspicion, each suspect a mirror reflecting the other's guilt. The omniscient eye observed a psychological maelstrom, motives clashing like thunderclaps. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the storm. The clues, they point in many directions, yet the truth, of autumn leaves and the faint musk of the Seine, vibrated with the anticipation of revelation. The murder of Madame Elise Dupont, the prima donna whose voice had once enchanted the world, had cast a shadow over the city of light. Her life extinguished by a silken scarf embroidered with golden larks. The grand hall beneath the tower, its iron arches and flickering gaslights a cathedral of truth, was the stage for Hercule Poirot's final act. The suspects, summoned once more, stood in a semicircle, their faces etched with dread, as the little Belgian prepared to unveil the murderer. The hall, bathed in the ethereal glow of electric lights, echoed with the distant rumble of thunder, a fading echo of the storm that had raged earlier. The scent of polished steel and damp wool mingled with the nervous tension of the gathered, each suspect a player in a drama of deception. Poirot, his patent leather shoes gleaming, his mustache a masterpiece of symmetry, paced with deliberate grace, his green eyes cutting through the gloom like a beacon. "Mes amis," he intoned, his voice a silken command that silenced the room. The murder of Madame Dupont was a crime of precision, a tapestry woven with threads of deceit, jealousy, ambition, fear, greed, obsession. But Hercule Poirot, with his little gray cells, has unraveled this web. Tonight the truth shall shine like the stars above. The suspects, their postures a gallery of human frailty, stood frozen under his gaze. Monsieur Henri Dupont, the jealous husband, his gaunt frame rigid, his shadowed eyes flickering with suppressed rage. Mademoiselle Claire Beaumont, the rival soprano, her raven hair and stormy gray eyes masking a soul torn by ambition, her fingers clutching a crimson scarf. Dr. Émile Rousseau, the clandestine lover, his silvered temples and spectacles betraying a heart haunted by fear. Madame Victoire Leclerc, the manageress, her plump figure trembling, her bespectacled eyes darting with desperation. Baron Otto von Kessler, the obsessive aristocrat, unverified alibi, the antiseptic smudge, all pointed to you. Rousseau's face paled, his spectacles slipping. "I loved her, monsieur, but I did not kill her," he protested, his voice quavering. Poirot's gaze shifted. But the doctor, he was a pawn in a greater deception. The lipstick, it matched Mademoiselle Beaumont's, and the crimson thread, it came from her cloak. Yet these two were planted to mislead. Claire's eyes widened, her voice sharp. "Planted? Absurd, I was at rehearsal." Poirot smiled faintly. "Your alibi, mademoiselle, is fragile, but your ambition, it blinds you to another's cunning." The omniscient narrator noted her trembling fingers, a psychological crack in her defiance. "The Baron," Poirot continued, turning to Otto. "Your scarf, your letters, your ticket stub, they screamed of guilt. Yet your obsession, it was too overt, a beacon to distract." Otto's smirk faltered. "I adored her, Poirot, but I am no murderer." Poirot nodded. Your passion was a shield for another's motive." The ticket stub, the omniscient eye observed, was a red herring, a plan abandoned in the face of tragedy. Poirot's eyes fell on Henri Dupont. "Monsieur, your jealousy was afire, but your brief absence from the club, it was not to kill, but to confront. You knew of her affairs, yet you hid your own." Henri's scowl deepened, his silence a confession of pride wounded but not murderous. The omniscient narrator noted his clenched fists, a psychological echo of shame. "And Pierre Laurent," Poirot said, his gaze softening. "Your flight was fear, not guilt. Your past, a secret tied to Elise, made you a target, but not the killer." Pierre's eyes brimmed with tears, his voice a whisper. "I only found her, monsieur, I swear." The telegram revealing his illegitimacy was a motive, yet his terror was that of a witness, not a culprit. Poirot's voice rose, commanding the hall. "The true murderer is Madame." Timeline, narrowed by the tower guard's report of a cry at 11:05 p.m., placed Leclerc at the scene, her dinner alibi crumbling under scrutiny. The letter, "End this folly, or all shall know," was her desperate plea to Elise, written in haste and discarded in panic. Poirot turned to the others, dismantling the red herrings. The doctor's antiseptic was a coincidence, carried by the breeze. Claire's thread, a plant by Leclerc. Otto's scarf, a gift from Elise, mirrored by Leclerc's own. Henri's absence, a confrontation, not a crime. Pierre's flight, a fear of his past exposed. The suspects, their faces a gallery of relief and shame, stood absolved yet exposed, their motives laid bare. Justice, Poirot concluded, it prevails, as the stars endure above. Order and method triumph over chaos. The hall fell silent, the gaslights flickering as the Sûreté led Leclerc away, her confession a broken melody. The tower, its lights twinkling like the stars, bore witness to the truth unveiled. The omniscient eye of fate, watching from above, saw the tapestry complete, its threads woven into a pattern of human frailty and redemption.